Chicago, 1920s. The city pulses with life. Alcohol is banned, but secret bars are thriving. And behind this illegal empire is a man who would become the most notorious gangster in U.S. history, Al Capone. With a charming smile and relentless ambition, Capone built an empire that generated over $100 million a year. But what few know is that his rise was rapid, and his fall even quicker. Alphonse Gabriel Capone was born on January 17, 1899 in Brooklyn, New York. The son of Italian immigrants, he grew up in an environment of struggle and poverty. His father, an honest barber, had high expectations for his son. But the reality of New York's streets in the early 20th century was brutal. The city was transforming into a cultural melting pot, but also fertile ground for crime. Brooklyn, with its narrow streets and tense atmosphere, shaped Capone's character. The influence of Italian and Irish gangs was felt on every corner. From an early age, Capone was introduced to the world of crime. He was a troublemaker in school. This behavior wasn't rare among the children of immigrants, young people who saw crime as their only path to success. Capone soon joined local gangs, where his ability to infiltrate and manipulate people quickly put him on the radar of powerful figures in the underworld. It was at the age of 19 that he became involved with Johnny Torrio, a veteran mobster, and his life would change forever. Johnny Torrio, Capone's mentor, was a calculating and skilled man, controlling a network of prostitution, gambling, and alcohol. He recognized Capone's talent quickly. Together, they formed a partnership that would lead them to Chicago, where Capone's future would be shaped. In 1920, the United States passed the Prohibition Act, an attempt to eliminate the sale and consumption of alcohol in the country. The goal was clear: reduce crime and promote public morality. But in practice, the law had the opposite effect. While the government tried to control alcohol sales, the black market flourished. Consumption didn't decrease. In fact, it increased. And that's when Capone saw a unique opportunity. He knew alcohol wouldn't disappear, and that citizens would still seek ways to drink. If the government wanted to ban it, he could supply it. Capone and Torrio built a sophisticated bootlegging empire. They used a network of thugs to smuggle alcohol into Chicago, where demand was insatiable. The streets of Chicago, controlled by gangs, soon became a battleground between Capone and rival factions. But unlike other mobsters, Capone knew how to manipulate the authorities. Capone used bribery as one of his main weapons. He corrupted politicians, police officers, and even members of the judicial system. In exchange for his donations and favors, he created a protective network that made him untouchable, even amidst all the crime. Capone expanded his empire beyond alcohol. He took control of casinos, brothels, and gambling establishments. His organization grew, and he became not only the boss of Chicago, but the face of a new kind of power. Now, he was no longer just a gangster, he was a public figure. Everyone in Chicago knew his name, and he knew how to build an image of respectability, despite his involvement in crime. As his fortune grew, Capone had no hesitation in flaunting his wealth. He frequented the best restaurants, attended lavish parties, and made a point of surrounding himself with important figures. He became a celebrity, and his image as a violent, unbeatable gangster gained even more notoriety. But while he saw himself as Chicago's undisputed king, a new threat was beginning to take shape. Eliot Ness, a young treasury agent, and his team of untouchables were preparing to bring down Capone's empire, and his destiny was about to change. Even at the height of his power, Al Capone made a fatal mistake. He believed the police and government were his puppets, controlled by the millions he paid to silence any threat. But there was an invisible force forming in the shadows, determined to bring Capone to justice. The battle was about to begin. As much as Capone was a master at keeping his operations secret, he underestimated one thing: the persistence of the government. When Capone thought he was in total control, Eliot Ness and his team of investigators, the Untouchables, began to infiltrate, one piece at a time. Eliot Ness wasn't just an ordinary investigator. He was a symbol of resistance. Unlike other agents, he wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty. He knew that to take down Capone, he needed to be smarter. Ness and his men worked tirelessly, building a case that seemed impossible. They focused on Capone's greatest weakness, his disdain for taxes. In 1931, after years of evading justice, Al Capone finally faced his reckoning. But it wasn't murder or bootlegging that would take him down. It was his own arrogance. The government's strategy was simple: tax evasion. Capone's lawyers tried to fight the charges, but the evidence was overwhelming. He was convicted of tax evasion, sentenced to 11 years in prison. The most powerful gangster in America was no longer untouchable. Capone was sent to the infamous Alcatraz prison, a maximum security facility that housed some of the country's most dangerous criminals. Here, his empire no longer mattered. His wealth, influence, and connections couldn't protect him from the harsh conditions of the prison. The prison did more than just isolate Capone. It destroyed him. The man who once ruled Chicago with fear was now a broken shell of himself. The syphilis that had plagued him for years began to take its toll, slowly eating away at his mind. He was no longer the brilliant strategist or the feared leader. By 1939, Capone was released from prison due to his declining health. The man who had once been the face of Chicago's underworld was now a shadow of his former self. The disease had ravaged his mental faculties, and the once feared gangster was forgotten by the public. Al Capone died on January 25, 1947, at the age of 48. He was no longer the man who controlled the streets of Chicago. He had been reduced to a memory, a symbol of the dangers of ambition unchecked. And as Chicago moved on, so did the myth of the most feared man in America. Though his empire crumbled, Capone's legacy lives on in the annals of crime history. His rise and fall serve as a cautionary tale of how power, greed, and the pursuit of dominance can destroy even the most untouchable of men.